Welcome back to Stab the Dragon Productions. Today is a whiskey holiday edition. Which holiday, you say? National Scotch Day. Coming to you from Fort Worth, Texas on Monday, July 27th, 2026, where it is 101 degrees today. So we're going to study in just a little bit about National Scotch Day, and then we're going to get into a Scotch whiskey and take a deep dive into Ardbeg10, the cult favorite. This Scotch single malt whiskey is from the island of Islay and is a 10-year-old weighing in at 92 proof and costing just under $60, heavily peated. Tasting notes. There are some sweet notes up front with vanilla even, but then the smoke just takes over. Score, 89. Letter grade for drinkability, solid A. My recommendation. This whiskey has achieved cult status, like I said, for a lot of reasons. It is one of the smokiest of all the peated whiskeys there are. It's got excellent flavor for a very good price. Now, this is not for beginners. You should work your way up the peated Scotch ladder before you try this one. All right, National Scotch Day. What is it? There's actually no record of a single point of origin for National Scotch Day, but it most likely began in America because in Scotland, I think it would simply be called National Whiskey Day. In Scotland, they don't call their whiskey Scotch. They call it whiskey. We're the ones who call it Scotch. So that's what Scotch is. It's a whiskey made in Scotland. Now, it must be made from distilled grains, of course, and aged in oak casks, be at least 3 years old, and 40% ABV or 80 proof. Those are some of the legal requirements for a Scotch whiskey. In Scotland, there are single malts, and those are made of only malted barley from one single distillery. And then it's called a single malt. So the single stands for single distillery. And malt stands for the type of grain they use. Then there are blended malts, which blend 2 or more single malts. And those can be from different distilleries, right? There are also single grain whiskeys. Now, what that means is it's a grain whiskey that can be like corn, rye, wheat, etc., but it's made at a single distillery. So there you're looking at mash bills that could be similar to our whiskeys in America, bourbons or ryes. Then there are the blended scotches. Blended scotches that blend single grain whiskeys with single malt whiskeys. The biggest top sellers of Scotch are the blended scotches, like Johnny Walker, Grant's, Cutty Sark, J&B, Famous Grouse. Now, the big top-selling single malts are the brands like Glenlivet, the Macallan, Glenfiddich, Laphroaig, and Ardbeg. So if you like whiskey here in America but have stayed safe with old favorites like Jack Daniel's, Jim Beam, Wild Turkey, Four Roses, Maker's Mark, etc., I would suggest that you might at some point try some Scotch to expand your horizons. So, cheers to the Scotch for making excellent whiskey for hundreds of years. Let's get into a little history of this particular whiskey. In medieval times, many Celtic monks took refuge on the island of Islay from the Vikings. Ardbeg Distillery is on the Isle of Islay, the southern tip, and it's one of the islands of the Inner Hebrides of Scotland. It is owned by, sadly, the French company Hennessy. This distillery has been around since 1790, but it began commercial production in 1815. Still, that's over 200 years. Ardbeg whiskeys are known for their heavy peat smoke flavors, and within the whiskey community, I would say Ardbeg10 has achieved cult status. So for history, 5 out of 5. But I might add, this has been in and out of production over 200 years. There's been time periods where the distillery lay dormant. There was many changes of ownership along the way. So, this has not been produced consistently through the years. All right, but 5 out of 5 for history still. Bottle, label, and marketing. Well, very shortly after joining the whiskey community online, I began hearing of this whiskey, Ardbeg10, and its heavy peat. So word of mouth advertising is very strong with this one. The box here is kind of a mossy green with a lot of black on it. And then the lettering is interesting there. It's white lettering, but there's also some gold lettering involved. So it looks dark and foreboding. I like the box. And then we have the bottle. I'm a fan of colored glass. I know it disguises the nature, the color of the whiskey. It hides the whiskey from everybody, but I don't care. I like colored glass, particularly green glass. This is dark green. I love it. This is one of my favorite bottles. And then it's got kind of a base here that's a little bit larger than the bottle, so it's a good stable platform. And then it slightly angles up to the shoulders that are nice and rounded there. You've got a flared neck. The cap is plastic, but the stopper is cork. I think that's plastic. I don't think that's wood. There you go. The label, I really do like the lettering on that label. All right, while it's open, I'm going to pour my glass. Now, other marketing features, their website is really pretty good. I liked their website. Tells a lot of the story there. A lot of good pictures, but when you search online for an advertisement, there are just a few advertisements, and they're actually, I think, from the Ardbeg people. There was one for Wee Beastie that was outstanding. I mean, this was a great advertisement. But the advertisements are geared for Americans, I might say. They're not really geared for Scots. They're geared for Americans. I mean, it's American English, and there's some movie themes going on that were very clearly American. I mean, it was well done. Okay. Now, there was one for Ardbeg10, and again, it was well done and just epic. Okay. So the couple of advertisements from the distillery that I saw, at least I think they're put out by the distillery. I mean, it had the distillery's name on there. Well done. So 5 out of 5 for bottle, label, and marketing. Now, appearance of this whiskey. This is a very light yellow, pale yellow. So this is a 2. Straw color, I guess you could say. So 2 out of 5. I do tend to prefer darker whiskeys. My wife prefers, when she looks at a whiskey, she prefers something like this. So I'm going to give it 2 points for appearance. Composition, 46% ABV or 92 proof. And that's excellent for a Scotch. You don't get many of those higher proofs with Scotch. So that's very good. And then non-chill filtered. And I don't think there's any coloring in there at all. 10 years of age. And heavily peated. One video from Ardbeg that I saw said this was 55 ppm, parts per million, and that's actually quite heavy in the peat department. So I don't know where they get their peat moss. Their barley they get from Port Ellen, and I don't know where Port Ellen just processes the barley, right? I don't know the farmland where they get it. I mean, there is barley raised on the island of Islay, but who knows? There's several distilleries there, so I don't know where it comes from. And the water source is there on Islay. So for composition, 14 out of 15. Let's nose this whiskey. Oh, and I am wearing my deerstalker hat, my Sherlock Holmes hat, right here. Now, like I said, it's 101 degrees here in Fort Worth today, and here I am wearing a deerstalker. I've worn this occasionally when the weather gets bad here. I mean, this is a great hat for, you know, cold, damp weather like Scotland would have. And that's why I'm wearing it today, is National Scotch Day. All right, so the nose, very peaty. Now, nailing down what kind of smoke this is can be very tough. It might be a tad bit briny, even though, I'm going to say briny, even though what I read about this said that it wasn't briny. Well, I get seashore, okay? Maybe seaweed. Medicinal, maybe just a little bit, but not heavy. But is this campfire smoke? I wouldn't call it campfire smoke. Meaty? Tar? I don't know. This one's really difficult for me to figure out what kind of smoke this is. It doesn't smell bad. I mean, it smells good. But nailing that down, the only thing I can really point to is the briny seashore flavor going on there. So 8 out of 10. It's got a pleasant nose. It's just hard for me to define what I'm smelling. That's really difficult. So let's go in for the taste. The taste is true to the nose, no surprises. There's some sweetness up front and even some vanilla going on there. Then the smoke kind of boils up, roiling through your mouth and throat. And if you like peat smoke, you're gonna, probably like this, although this is a heavy dose of it. I'm not getting any fruit, nor am I getting maltiness that I would expect to get with a single malt. The smoke really dominates. Now I'm going to say that this is definitely an acquired taste, and I really like it. It might be in my favorites category. I mean, I scored this as an A, but part of that's for quality. This is certainly not going to be a daily drinker. Okay, so it's not that kind of an A. I can taste the quality. I enjoy a heavy peat smoke once in a while. So this is a once in a while favorite. 22 out of 25 for taste. Mouthfeel, burn, and finish. It is fairly oily, rich. Mouth is coated. There is a mild burn that goes beyond mouth tingles. I still think it punches below its 92 proof, but it's definitely a burn in the mouth, a little bit going down in the back of the throat. The finish is all about the smoke. Well, there might be a little bit of the sweetness and vanilla left hanging on, but it's really all about the smoke. It's a rich, long-lasting, smoky quality that, I mean, it'll linger for minutes, several minutes. Definitely. 14 out of 15 for a mouthfeel, burn, and finish. Now, versatility, flexibility. I love this neat. I think it is stout enough to hold up to ice, should you need to do that. But I will not mix single malts into a cocktail. To me, that would be heresy. So what does that do for the score? This whiskey is designed to be consumed neat, and it excels at that. But I do know there are some that are mixing single malts. And I guess that's a thing. I mean, you can do what you want to. You pays your quarter, you take your chances, right? You buy a single malt, you can do with it what you want. For me, I have tried very few cocktails with single malts, and they just do not work. And I'm talking even American single malts. Okay. Single malts for me are neat only. I just don't like making cocktails with these. And it's not just a price thing, although that's part of it. When I get a whiskey that's over 40, I start balking at making a cocktail. Over 50, really hesitant. And over 60, I think I'll pass. But with single malts, I just haven't figured out cocktails yet, and I don't think I'm interested in trying. So, what does that do to my score, though? This whiskey I think it's designed to be drunk neat. And so doing it the way it's intended to do, you would think a 5 out of 5. However, I think flexibility with whiskey is a good thing. And that's one reason why the blended scotches outsell single malts. Most people want to mix their whiskeys with something. And so blended scotches excel at that, not single malts. Bourbons excel at that. Ryes excel. Okay, so there's that. So I think it is inherently rigid here. It's not flexible. And so I think I've got to account for that a little bit in my score. So 4 out of 5 for versatility and flexibility. This is not flexible. It's not versatile. This is a one-trick pony, but it does that trick very well. Okay. Single malt, consumed neat. There you go. Price, value, and availability. Total Wine here in Fort Worth, $56.99. Specs, $58.92. Goody Goody, $62.99. So I think this whiskey has a great value for the price, great availability. It is incredibly popular, and it's readily available for a righteous price. So 10 out of 10 for price, value, and availability. Bonus points. I'm going to give this 5 out of 5 bonus points because everything from the packaging, the composition, the history, it all is a total package for me. This is a perfect example of why I love studying whiskeys. And hey, if you mention Celtic monks and Vikings in the history, that's an automatic winner for me. So there you go. I love smoky whiskeys. This is the smokiest of whiskeys. So there you go. 5 bonus points, giving me a total score of 89 and a letter grade for drinkability, a solid A. The only reason it's not an A plus is this is not something I would drink every day. And so this is my analysis and recommendation. Again, it's achieved cult status for several reasons, but the smoky quality here, while exceptional, kind of precludes it being a daily drinker for me. And for recommending this, I would never recommend this for beginners. This is something you're going to have to work your way up to, work your way up the peat ladder, right? If you start off with Johnnie Walker Red, then Johnnie Walker Black, and maybe some others, maybe Bell's Blended, it's got some peat smoke to it. I would recommend starting with some blends that have peat smoke, and then go to some of the other single malts that have just a little bit, and kind of work your way up. So that's what I would recommend here. All right, next up, I might be looking at doing my Texas rye whiskey studies because I'm due for a head-to-head competition And that's going to be between these two. Powers Irish Rye and 10th Mountain Rye Whiskey. So I've got a head-to-head match coming up with these, hopefully this week. And then Colorado, my home state, where I was born, is having their state birthday on Saturday. And so I'm thinking hopefully Friday I can celebrate the state of my birth, the centennial state, and that means a Colorado whiskey. What better Colorado whiskey can we get than Stranahan's original? There you go. So that's coming up hopefully Friday. It even comes with a tin cup. All right. For National Scotch Day and Ardbeg10. This is StabtheDragon Productions. Cheers.